The following program is brought to you by Naleo TV, the People's Platform.
I'm Kanani Daly, and I am the Contemporary Hawaii Curator for the East Hawaii Cultural Center. And my work really looks at the current experience for Hawaiians with acknowledgement of the difficult history of Hawaii. The concept of He'ehu He Pohaku is to offer insight on Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian relationality, and Hawaiian ways of being through the lens of Māhū. I wanted to flip the narrative. I think through generations of being colonized, we have unconsciously and consciously accepted these imagined social constructs, and Māhū would, oftentimes people would categorize Māhū as just this one thing and immediately associate with gender or sexuality. The diversity of the people and the group of this exhibition really changes that because, we have so many different backgrounds. Now we can see Māhū as all of these things. Like we have scholars, we have a farmer, we have a classical pianist, kumuhula, we have cultural leaders. And so Māhū are really all of those things. And the physicality of a person, it shouldn't be the precedent of how we recognize someone. So this is the entry to He'ehu He Pohaku. He'ehu He Pohaku is, in English it means of mist and of stone. And so when that inoa or that title just it fell into my heart, and I knew that was it because it is really resonant of the transformative qualities of Māhū. And so these are all of the people that are in this exhibition that share their mo'olelo or share their stories. All of the design aspects and all of the pieces and the artworks itself were meant to be supportive of the stories of the people that are in the show. The nice thing about this exhibition being, even though it's about diversity and about very different people, it's also about Māhū. So I wanted people to get a chance to just really, really listen, to walk into a space that they can open their hearts to. And I'd love it if they'd walk away with a greater understanding, a bigger worldview, and one that comes from the Indigenous Hawaiian perspective and compassion. There's sculptural objects, and then there's work that takes up the wall space. We have sound qualities that are part of the experience. We have these recordings, and so I interviewed each of the people in the exhibition, and I just talked story with them, and it's just really their voice, sharing their story, their backgrounds, their histories of family and responsibility, and how they contribute to the community. This is a piece by Tapouri Tangaro. He just works very intricately, as you can see, and in this piece it's made of cotton, and he has dressed and the edges of it with canine teeth. And from what I learned from him, in Hawaiian culture, canine teeth symbolize and represent protection. So this actually wraps around the body, and so in that way it is protective of the person who's wearing it. So this is another piece by Tapouri Tangaro, and it's called Paha'o Pa'u. So a pa'u is something that is worn in hula and many times in ceremonial hula. I added to the piece by bringing in this cloth that you see at the bottom to speak to the transformation of Māhū.
I don't naturally identify as an artist, so I shy away from exhibiting. These are usually in my office. I have an exhibition space in my office, and I use it in academia to help indigenize the university. So it's part of my curriculum that I do at the University of Hawaii. How do I feel when it's here? It enters me into a larger context, a larger community. You know, the artist world has an artist community, and not too often I am in that world. So this is Kanani and her invitation to have me participate. One, my first inclination said, nah, no need, go find a real artist. But then I think, no, maybe there's a kid out there that needs to see this. Maybe there's an elder that needs to see this. And maybe outsiders too may need to see this, to see that our rituals are still very vibrant. And in 2024, we're still doing the same dances and chants. We're still wearing the same fibers, but we redefine them for us in 2024. So it feels good to, for a little while, contribute to the larger context of what we call art.
The newest space in our East Hawaii Cultural Center gallery is Olana Iwi, and it's been something that we've been working on and thinking about for many years. And so this exhibit was the one that we were able to expand, and it's kind of like the launching of that space. And that space is dedicated to telling the stories of people of Hawaii and Polynesia. So this piece here is by Tangaro, and what's kind of special about this space is that this piece is shared in the same room as his former student, Kumukapua Ka'a'a. She is a kumuhula, and they went through the uniki process together. And I interviewed Tangaro and her, and so people have access to listening to the experience from Kumu Tangaro as well as the experience from Kumu Ka'a'a.
2020, in the most isolated time of our living history as human beings, you know, I gathered up all the aha that I could possibly gather up from the community, and I just went and went. So there's my blood in there, there's my skin in there, there's my hair. But this reminds me of the fact that sometimes the Māhū people feel isolated because, you know, it's just the way the culture is at the moment. And so when they see this and we let them know that these knots reflect the ancestor, and we may not see it because it's just a knot, but how many of our ancestors were also Māhū, and begin to not feel so isolated. Stacy Ka'awa is my hula student, and she's a kumu hula who unikira under my traditions. And she wanted to learn koko pu'upu'u. A lot of people want to do it, but it takes a particular propensity. And it's one chord, so you know it's kind of difficult in its simplicity. But so I showed it to her, and I just did it fast, thinking if she gets it, she gets it. If she doesn't get it, she doesn't get it. Well, she got it, and each time she made one got better and better. And look at her work there now. That is exquisitely made, and I like to think that I inspire my students that way, and I think that's what art does. Art inspires.
This piece that I created had to do with the idea of kana, and kana is the cord. It is the symbol of the cord in Hawaiian culture and that epistemology. And so this was actually derived from the works of my kumu hula, which is Taupori Tangaro, and what he taught us. So all of the ike that was done and used for this piece was built upon that knowledge system that he created, along with Kelly Irashel, who was also my koko pu'upu'u teacher on the side. And so with him and Tangaro, this piece was made. So this piece was actually created for function to actually be used in ritual and stuff. And so it goes beyond the whole museum quality of pieces, and it's actually applicable for hula. The wrapping, or the whip, as our Kumu-umi calls it, the whip, but this is from the kakai. The kakai is the handle area of the koko pu'upu'u. So it was translated into the piece, into the pa'u. This ka'e, however, is more contemporary style of wrapping, but it was created with the idea that it came from a kahua of koko pu'upu'u. It's a great piece too, first of all, because I'm with my kumu, so I'm like so happy and fortunate to share a piece in the same space as him. So you can see the genealogy of Ike that's happening in our hula line. And it's also important to show how culture evolves, how we can take an ancestral Ike, such as the cord work, and bring it into this century and make it applicable to ritual and to hula and to the things that we do in our cultural practice today.
So this is Laritza Lala Bush, just such a gorgeous, beautiful person, Māhū, who is one of maybe 2 or 3, and I'm not sure, but I know there's not a long history of people graduating from Juilliard. So she's a graduate of Juilliard. She's a classical pianist and composer. And what I love about her is that she really is surprising. When you walk into the space, you don't expect to hear classical music. So I think it just shows how diverse we are as Hawaiians, that we can exist in many different worlds and do many different things.
I try to put my family and community before like my own kind of, personal feelings of it. It's, I'm always putting myself within the work, but also just what is the bigger picture? How is my music going to push forward the narratives as Māhū, as us, as marginalized kind of community? Not a lot of us are in classical music, and not a lot of us are in film. I've been doing drag since 2017, and I felt like it's not just a performance at this point. I feel like it's my identity, which is also, what Māhū is.
Weave together. Originally, these were all separate pieces, and so it's a series of works by Ka'imi, Kahakina. We enjoyed that it's always moving and it's always changing.
The pieces were created for Papa'ololokahi. They were doing a campaign on, a toolkit for Māhū, particularly with Native Hawaiian health. It was really to inform doctors and practitioners, medical practitioners, about the complexity of Māhū. So I created those pieces for that project. I think that I wanted to reorient Māhū back to a place of ceremony and a place of sacredness. So there are a few Māhū shown in this exhibit that are sort of closely related to ceremony, holding an apu'ava and having a kanoa in front, kind of reinserting or redacting and adding in our presence in ceremonial spaces, which I think historically that is true. But I think more than ever now, we need more Māhū in ceremonial spaces. So that was the whole sort of, premise. Those two premises were what fueled that art and that project in general.
This piece is by Andre Kumar. He and I installed the show, and his work is in here. So he and I, talked about how we would like to see his work presented. He uses imagery of these individuals appearing and reappearing as a metaphor to how culture also disappears and reappears and how it changes over time.
Kanani invited me for this exhibition, and I'm very happy and lucky that I could prepare those pieces. So my photographs are actually, I photographed Māhūs, and I didn't want to just use photographs. I wanted to use photo intaglio, which is printing technique. And the reason I was using this technique because I just wanted to ink one-time plate and make as many prints as possible, which at the beginning, of course, when you have creative process, at the beginning I was thinking as a metaphor of culture and of every human being that we are changing all the time. But when I also printed those prints, each of them has totally different value. There are not just the ghosts of the first image. Each of them has different value, different sort of, I would say, message, different appearance. When you come to the piece and you start looking to each print separately, you can also project your own. So you are changing, your perspective in changing. And that's how I believe history, culture, everything works. When I did the prints also already, I thought that would be good to kind of frame them in the ocean and rocks. I'm photographing the island and I'm fascinated by the idea of island also. But when you think about the essence, there's a rock and ocean. One cannot exist without another. And the same kind of how we are with the society. We need society, but sometimes society can be oppressive. Sometimes society helps you. And also a reverse way. You are participating in the cultures.
I feel like seen. I feel like the people in this exhibit, the exhibit itself, I see each person in the art, in the photography, in the talking. The other people in the exhibit are also seen. I feel like I have to always remind myself that I belong with the people that are here. I kind of feel like I'm like sitting with the bigwigs tonight. And that all the work that I've been doing internally, externally has led me to this growth edge. And it's my responsibility to step into it and feel uncomfortable. But I also feel honored to be able to have this experience and this perspective after this is done.
Some feelings that are going through my mind while looking at these pictures. I mean, I feel like the work of everybody in here is the complexity, right? The complexity of experiences that have led to the creation of these pieces. There's genealogies of ancestors that are woven through the fabric of every single piece, including every single individual like myself and Akea and others who are featured here. It's almost as if you can see those ancestors with them. So that's pretty cool.
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really proud because I get to watch Kaimi's work and that little video over there, all of the things that you work hard on. I'm proud to see your work featured. And I'm also proud to be a part of this panel where we get to talk about Māhū in a very deep level and not just the things that are fun, the things that are surface level, but to really get into this kalele, the analysis and the kind of future of what conversations about Māhū look like.
The name of this exhibit is He'ehu He Pohaku, and that speaks to that irreducibility where Māhū are at once pohaku, but at the same time there are also these mists, right? These things that are indistinguishable, incapturable, and that's the magic.
So in the same way, talking about Māhū and the magic of that it's very much shape-shifting, kupua. We talk about mo'olelo ka'au, like there's just so many magical aspects of that, and I think the exhibit does a really awesome job of looking at how diverse Māhū iterations can be, and not just a single leaf, but many flora and fauna.
This is Lehua'uakea's pieces, her cloaks made of kapa and cloth. She is a kapa maker. And I think one of the interesting things about Lehua'uakea is that she is a diaspora. And so she can speak from the perspective of a Hawaiian who is not always in her lands, and also speak from someone who grew up in Papaikou, actually on this island, as well as she has family throughout the island here and also in the States, in the continent. And so she can speak from the perspective of queer, Māhū, and diaspora. Well, the design of this room in particular was very intentional. For its goal, I had this idea to work with the artist to present her cloaks in a way that it created an illusion that it was actually on her. So we kind of had to share in figuring out how could we do that, and so it really was a method of how do we create an illusion. And I guess when we think about Māhū, I think that there's this illusion side of it, and then there's like this real person. I guess I kind of wanted to metaphorically play with that.
Learning so much at the time about like how to process the material, how it grows, how to harvest it, how to gather my own pigments to make paints, how different soils work together, how they don't. And so I was like learning so much about the material, and it really forced me to slow down and kind of change how I approach making work as an artist. The way of working with kapa, which demands its own slowness. The patience, I guess, came with it, but in part of that process, I started learning more of the traditional quote gender roles that applied to kapa making through the kapu system. The men made a lot of the tools, did the carving and whatnot, and the women were the ones who beat the material, and there were specified areas that were just for certain activities, so just for wahine, just for kane, and there was not really too much overlap. However, there were some cases where some individuals could move in between these two areas, and or some techniques that kane were allowed to do, like kane were allowed to make certain kinds of kapa that wahine were forbidden to make. The other thing important to note too is out of necessity today, a lot of kapa makers, they make their tools and they beat the kapa. So they do both. They do everything because we're in a period of revitalization and reclamation. But for me, I feel like I started doing that less out of necessity, and it became more so about how I feel able to embody both ends of that spectrum of kuleana.
I would like people who come to see this exhibit be inspired to be more critical thinkers. And I think that as a general practice, when we are able to think, analyze, assess, when we're able to look at our life and the different elements, the situations that come to us, if we know how to think about certain things, it's easier for us to to process it. And when I say think, I mean think through a Hawaiian lens. Oftentimes, especially in Hawaii of 2024, and especially when it comes to the topic that Western world knows as LGBTQIA, that's the only narrative, that's the only articulation that we are usually offered. And it's about time that we Kanaka start to promulgate our own narratives about this experience in life and what it means to us, by us, for us, such that we don't have to be trying to join the wheel that belongs to something and someone else. We need to reinstate that which fully makes us Kanaka, even to the extent that it would have to do with Māhū, Noho Aikane, and other things too.
I want them to be leaving this space with the feeling of I would hope that they would leave with the feeling of like awe. You know, I'm not really speaking on behalf of myself, but I look at all the rest of everybody, the artists, you know, the people who make these art, and it's awe-inspiring. It's like, wow, like despite all of the challenges, like these are very talented, deep people.
I think the first thing that I'd like people to take away is that being Māhū is not something that you can reduce to something concrete. And I think that's the power and the magic in being Māhū, is that it's irreducible.
Ho'omaikai to Kanani Daily and all of the rest of the support that has come to her. And I am very appreciative and very humbled by being able to join everyone else here today. Mahalo nui.
It was such a pleasure to curate this exhibition and to have this event and host and facilitate and establish relationships with everybody that was in this exhibition. I just want to mahalo everyone for their mana'o and their ike and all of their aloha. Mahalo.